Hello and welcome. My name is Faisal and this tutorial is about Python scripting, mark changer. We are going to create a tool called mark changer to enable us change our our attacking machine MAC address. Now, what is a MAC address? MAC stands for media access control. It's also called a physical address. Now, every device has its own unique MAC address. The first three parts of the address identify the device, what the last three parts identify the manufacturer of the device. Now, we might encounter a network whereby in that network a switch has been configured to implement port security in such a way that only certain devices are allowed to connect to that particular switch. Now, the control, that particular port security control makes use of MAC address to bind those ports to that particular MAC address. So when we connect our attacking machine to that particular switch, we cannot be able to connect to that particular network since our MAC address has not been configured to connect to that switch. So when we find any device which has been allowed to connect to that switch, and we can spoof its MAC address, so that particular switch will not be able to distinguish between our attacking machine and that particular device that has been allowed to connect to that particular network. Now, so we are going to create this tool, this Python script, to enable us spoof MAC address. Okay, so the first thing we do, we create a my first line of code. I've already created a project called MAC changer in my Python. This is a Python editor, Python. Okay, so we're going to start coding. Now, this is called a shebang. A shebang is written as a comment. So what does shebang do? Shebang tells our Python script that this particular application will make use of Python 2 as the interpreter. You know, there are different versions of Python. We have Python 2, we have Python 3. So we have instructed the computer running this particular script that is should use Python 2, and we have given the absolute part of that where that particular Python interpreter is going to be found, the user being m Python 2. Okay, and it is usually written as a comment, and comments are usually ignored by the interpreter. So when the interpreter came to start implementing our code, it will ignore this as a comment. And comments are usually used to improve program readability, to enable us understand our code when we come back later to review the code, or to enable other fellow programmers look at the comment and understand what our program is doing. Okay, the next thing we do, we import the modules that we are going to use in the program. Import subprocess. Okay, so what I have just did, I've imported a module called subprocess. Now, subprocess module is a module that will enable us to run system commands, because we are going to making use of system commands to implement this our Python script. So that is why I imported this module called subprocess. Import. Now, lam5 is another module called octpath. Now, octpath enable us to pass through the command line, because this particular program, we are going to create it to enable the user enter the values for the interface and for the MAC address that we want to change over the command line. So this octpath has some functions that will enable us pass through the command line and obtain the values that the user entered, and then input it into the program so that the program can be able to change the MAC address. Import RE, regular expression. So we are line number 6. We also import another module called regular expression. We are also going to be making use of regular expression in this our Python script. So line number 9 is a function. I have just defined a function. Now, what is a function? A function is a programming approach that enables what you call divide and conquer. Now, function divide and conquer approach. So a large problem is being broken down into simple steps and into simple manageable units, and that each particular unit is solving part of the larger problem. Our larger goal here is to be able to change the MAC address. So each of the functions that we are going to implement in this program will contribute toward achieving that particular goal, which is changing MAC address. Now, this particular function that I have just defined will get the argument entered by the user. So let's proceed to see how we can go about doing just that. So let me do a comment, creating an object that can, okay, sorry, I was looking at my keyboard, creating an object that can handles user input from the command line. Okay, let me leave it as such. So this is a comment. Now, line number 10, as I said, is a comment, and comment usually begins with a hash sign. Okay, so the compiler will recognize it as a comment, and comment are meant to improve our program readability, so that when we come back later we can be able to understand what this our code doing, and other programmers in this particular code will be able to understand what our program is doing. Okay, parser equals to so line number 11, I've done what we call object instantiation. As parser equals to opt_pass.option parser. Now, this option parser is a class. Usually class names begins with a capital letter. It uses what we call camel casing in such a way that if it comprises of 2 words, each of the word initials will begin with a capital letter. So we have option parser, and this option parser is from the module opt_pass. So, and we have created an object instantiation, and we are assigning that object to variable parser. Okay, so this is what we call object oriented programming, where we have a class and then we create an object from that class, and that object will have the same capability as that particular class. Okay, so let's proceed. Okay, so line number 14, we make use of a add option. Now, add option is a function function from the class option parser. But remember that parser is an object and is an implementation of class option parser. So that is why we are able to make use of this add option function, which is initially from the class option parser, and this will enable us to add the options that this particular that is going to be passed over the command line. Okay, and this option, among the options we are going to have, is interface, which the user can make use of a single letter -i or the full name interface -interface to supply the value of the interface over the command line. And then we have dest. Dest is an argument that will acting like a variable that will store the original value entered by the user. So let's say the user enter interface as eth0 or wlan0 as the value of the interface. So it's going to be stored in variable dest for use of this particular script. And then help, and then help, the other one, the help, will display this help command. So if the user enter the name of the program markchanger.py over the command line and then type --help, then this particular help menu is going to be displayed. Interface gen8 mark address. Okay, so then we add the next option. Okay, so I can just, to save time, I can easily duplicate this by just putting my mouse, clicking over it, and then pressing Ctrl D, and then it will duplicate. Then the next option that I want to add is mark. New mark address. Okay, so the next option that we want the user to add over the command line is the mark, which he can make use of either a single letter M or the full name mark to enter the mark address, to supply the mark address to the program over the command line. Okay, let's proceed. Options, comma, argument, parser.parseArgs. Now parser.parseArgs. Okay, so here we have done a double assignment operation. We have two variables, options and argument, which are within this particular parenthesis, and we are assigning them with the value that is going to be returned by this particular function parseArgs. And parseArgs is from the module, is from the object parser. From the object parser is a parseArgs is a function from the class option parser. Remember that parser is an object of class option parser. Okay, so what does parseArgs do? ParseArgs will pass over the command line and get the argument entered by the user as well as their values. The argument will be stored in the variable argument in our case here, and the value of the options of the argument is going to be stored in the options. So if the user enter -i as a name for interface and then the name of the interface eth0, then the -i will be stored in argument variable here, and then the actual value eth0 will be stored in variable options. So that is what basically function parseArgs do. Now if not, options dot interface. So line number 17 use a control structure. The if control structure. Now, if control structure is a selection control structure and is used in carrying out a decision. So when our program comes to line number 17, is going to carry out test this condition. If not options. So if the user did not enter a value for options, so we have if not options, that means the value is going to be false. So it's going to come out with this error message. This error function is a function from class option parser, and we are using option parser, and we're using parser as an object of class option parser. So it's going to display this message, please specify interface, that is alerting the user of this particular application to enter an interface, or use -- help for more info. Okay, so let's test in a case where the user did not enter a MAC address. So we can do that by using elif not options new MAC. Sorry. Okay, so line number 19 is asking if the user is testing to see if the user does not enter a new MAC. So if the user does not enter a new MAC, it's going to come up with this message, please specify a new MAC, use -- help for more info. Okay, then finally we are going to return an options. Return options. Okay, so this function will execute, and after executing is going to return the value of options to the part of the program that call this function. So here we have just created a function. No, we have not created the part that will call this function and make use of the function. So we have only defined the functions and created the function. Okay, so let's proceed with our coding. Now we are going to create a new function again. Change MAC. And change MAC is a function, but this function has defined two parameters: interface and new MAC. So line number 24, we have a function change MAC, and this function change MAC define two parameters: interface and new MAC. So what it means by parameters is that whenever we call this function, require the value for the interface and the new MAC to be supplied whenever we call this function. So any part of our program calling this function must give the value for the interface and the new MAC. Print MAC address. Okay, interface, Okay, so line number 25 is just a print function statement. It's just a print statement that will print out this particular message, notifying the user that the program is about to change the MAC address. Now line number 26 make use of a call function, and this call function is from the modulo subprocess. Remember, we imported modulo subprocess, and we say modulo subprocess will enable us to execute system commands. Now ifconfig is a system command that will enable us ifconfig usually displays our interface. Like we'll go to the command line here and just type ifconfig, then it is going to display our interfaces, mark add information about our interfaces. For instance, here I have ETH0, and we can see information about the ETH0. Okay, so I have subprocess.call. We have the call function, and then we are able to pass the argument as a list, as element of a list. Though there is another way of using this particular call function, which you can look through when you are in the documentation for this particular modulo subprocess, but this is the most secured way of using the call function. So passing the argument as element of a list. So each of this ifconfig is an element of a list. ifconfig interface, and then down the ifconfig we pass it as a string, and then we have the interface, which is a variable that will represent the interface that's going to be entered by the user, and then down, and then we are bringing the interface down so that we can be able to change the MAC address. Okay, so let's proceed. Subprocess.call ifconfig the interface, okay, what did I press? Okay, so line number 27, we make use of the call function from the modulo subprocess to actually change the MAC address. Yeah, by passing the argument as element of a list. ifconfig interface, the interface whose MAC address we want to change, hw ether new MAC. Okay, since we have changed the MAC address, now let's bring it off by just typing subprocess. Call ifconfig interface up. Okay, so basically at line 20, line 27 to line 28 has changed the MAC address. Okay, so let's define another new function again. Def get current MAC, and then this function will also define a parameter called interface. So after changing the MAC, let's check to see whether the MAC address has actually changed. That is the essence of this function that we are going to create just now. If config result subprocess check output if config interface okay. So line number 32 is checking for the information about the interface that we have on our system. Just as I remember that we went to our command line and type ifconfig, and when we type ifconfig, it's going to give us information about all the interfaces that we have. But let's say we just want information about ETH0, so we can just type ifconfig config ETH0, and then just display just information about the ETH interface ETH0. Okay, so that is what we are doing in this line number 32. Okay, so it will check output, so it will read the output. We are using check output function from the module subprocess, so it will run this command ifconfig interface, and then the output that results from running this command, this check output will read over it, and then it will return that particular information and then pass it to variable ifconfig results. MAC address. Okay, let's me define another MAC address search results. Search MAC address search result equals okay. All right, let's search result does search okay. Before I proceed, so we have this our output. We say line number 20, line number 32 will run this command ifconfig interface, and then supply the interface, and then read the output, and then assign the output to this variable ifconfig result. So this is typically what the result looks like: ifconfig interface ETH0, and this is the result. So we want to be able to extract the MAC address. This is where we have the MAC address ETA 000C29804981. So we want to be able to extract this. Now, to be able to extract this, we are going to be making use of what we call a regular expression. Remember that we imported module RE at the, when we begin coding this particular script, we imported module RE. So we are going to make use of a regular expression to be able to extract the MAC address. Okay, and how do we do just that? We are going to make use of a site called Pytex. So we go over to Google and just type Pytex. Pytex. Go. Okay, if I Python regular expression editor. Now Python regular expression is a string, make use of some defined strings to be able that match a pattern in our string that we supply to it. Okay, what do I mean? So we have this particular output. When we copy this particular output, just copy it, a test string. So let's pass it. Then we should have a regular expression, some set of strings that will match the MAC address portion, so that it will be able to extract the MAC address. Though I have already done that, and that particular regular expression that will match exactly this particular MAC address is W. And remember that the MAC address portion is 6 parts. And what does this WW actually mean? We have the regular expression cheat sheet. We have W alphanumeric, so it used in extract as identifying alphanumeric /W/W. Okay, so we go to it. When we write it 6 times, we are going to be able to extract the MAC address. So you can read more on regular expression. Okay, so let me just duplicate this. Okay, so you can see we have been able to extract the MAC address. Okay, so I'll just copy this. So I'll come to my search function from the module regular expression and just write it. Write R. This is the way we write it. Then we write our regular expression string. Okay, then after ifconfig result, ifconfig result. Okay, so basically what we are saying is that extract a pattern that matches this regular expression that we supplied from ifconfig result. Now ifconfig result is a variable that represents the output of running the command ifconfig interface. So ifconfig interface, when we run the command, then the output is going to be stored in ifconfig result. So we are going to make use of this regular expression to extract the MAC address portion from ifconfig result. Okay, so if MAC address search result, okay, So line number 35, we are saying if MAC address. So if MAC address search result. So if line number 33, we have been able to extract the MAC address using the search function from the module regular expression RE. So if at all we have the MAC address, then this particular function should return the MAC address. And group 0 signifies the first occurrence of this particular the first occurrence of where we have this regular expression matches. So in a situation whereby this regular expression matches more than one instance, we are just interested in the first value, because that first value is what corresponds exactly to our MAC address, which you can see here from this particular result. This is the first occurrence of alphanumeric. That particular regular expression matches the first case. So in a situation where we may have more than one case, we are just interested in this particular instance, which is exactly our MAC address. So that is the essence of this particular function group 0. Okay, else print could not read MAC address. Tell the user of the program that it could not be able to read the MAC address. Okay, now this is the main body of our program. Options equals to get argument. Print MAC equals to get current MAC, and then we are going to supply it options.interface. Okay, so what we did just for a line number 41, we created a variable called options, and then we assign it with the result that we are going to get when we run function get argument. Remember, get argument will run, and then it will return options, which are values that the user enter over the command line. So options variable will now have the value of the values that the user entered over the command line. So line number 42, we have current MAC, another variable. We created current MAC, get current MAC. Then it's going to execute the function get current MAC, and we supply the value of the parameter interface as argument options.interface, which is the interface from this line 41 options. So we supply the value of the interface as argument to function get current MAC. Now let's print out so we are going to print a current MAC. So get current MAC. If at all we are able to get the MAC address, then it's going to return, as you can see from line number 36, it's going to return the MAC address. So line number 43, are going to print it out. Current MAC, print current MAC plus current MAC. And remember that current MAC is going to return to us as a numeric value. So we make use of what we call typecasting, str. We are going to convert it to string, and then we are making use of a concatenator to join the two of them, to join the two strings together, so that we can have current MAC equals to then the current MAC address. Okay, then let's call another function change mark. Change mark options dot new mark. Okay, so line number 46, we are calling function change mark, and function change mark will require two parameters. We declared as it's going to require two parameters, interface and new mark, and then we have, when we call it line number 46, we supply to it two arguments, option.interface and option.new mark, which this interface and new mark are from the line number 41 options. Okay, current mark equals to get current mark options the interface okay. So line number 48, say we are current mark, we say current mark equals to get current mark, so we are calling get current mark function again, get current mark, and we are supplying it with argument options.interface, and we are going to assign the value to variable current mark. If current mark equals to if current mark is equivalent to quality operator, equivalent to values dot new mark, print okay. Sorry. Okay, so line number 49, we are asking to see whether we have, so okay, I made a little error, it's not values the new mark, it's options.new mark, options.new mark. Okay, so line number 49, we are using the if control structure to check whether we have been able to successfully change the MAC address. If current MAC is equivalent to options.newMark. Options.newMark, the new MAC address that we have been able to pass to function change MAC. So if the MAC address has successfully changed, then we are going to print a message that the MAC address successfully changed to the current MAC address that we have been given, the user has inputted. Else we're going to print out a message that the MAC address has not changed. Okay, so let's now save this particular program and go and run it and see how it works. MacChanger.py. Okay, so I just come to my command line. Let me clear the screen. So I have it in my desktop, change to Python. There's a folder called Python where I created the project ls. Okay, mark changer. Okay, so I'll okay, I have it now. Okay, clear. So I'll just type Python, since the default Python is Python 2, the mark changer.py. Then okay, now let's try running without passing any option and see how the program goes. You see, okay, so you see mark changer, it gives us an error. Please specify interface, use -- help for more info, just as we coded in the script. Okay, clear. So now let's supply the right parameter argument and see how the program works. Mark changer.py. Okay, so I interface eth0, then the MAC address I want to change 00 01 11 22 33 44. All right, so the program has successfully changed. Current MAC changing MAC address for eth02, and the MAC address has changed. Okay, so I can verify that ifconfig eth0 ifconfig eth0 and see, and the MAC address has successfully changed as claimed. Okay, we have it here. Okay, so this marks the end of this lecture. Thank you.